this right here is a roller. It may not look like a roller you've used before. These rollers are essentially the secret, one of the secrets, to painting large areas like walls and to paint it easily and quickly. You'll notice that it's kind of like carpet. It's not like the typical white fibers rollers that you see. This is like a shag carpet from the 70s. Now it looks a little worse for wear, but it's been used about 150 times. And it hasn't been cleaned out perfectly every time, but these things can last and last and last and last. Yes, they cost more, but they will last a long time. You won't get them in just any hardware store. You have to go to some paint stores that will have them, and some that won't. You have to look around for these. But they're like a traditional roller. It's hollow in the middle, and it goes on a basic 9-inch roller cage, just like any other 9-inch roller would do. This type of roller, because it's so plush, holds a lot of paint, and it doesn't matter what the sheen level of the paint is. It doesn't matter if it's a semi-gloss or not. It will apply lots of paint, and it will allow you to smooth it out, and it makes no difference if you're using a high gloss paint. Some paint stores will say if you're using a high gloss paint, use a low nap roller. That's not the way to go. You want to apply a lot of paint, and then you can always roll it out as smooth as you want with this. Now, sandpaper. I like to use this type of sandpaper when I'm sanding walls. It's basically emery cloth. What it really is from a sanding belt that's just been cut in half. And you can see the number here. It says 120. That's 120 grit. That's gritty enough to sand a typical wall, to sand the imperfections off a wall. If you use the sheets of sandpaper that you get, they're not emery cloth, and they'll tend to just disintegrate in your hand as you're using them. This won't disintegrate. It'll last and last and last, and it's got the grit. The 120 is gritty enough to sand walls nicely, but it's not so gritty it's going to score the wall or anything. So this is good sandpaper to be using for sanding walls, for sanding trim, woodwork, that type of thing. Now, this is another one of the secrets that you have to know if you don't want to kill yourself painting. When I say kill yourself, I mean make yourself tired. This is an extension pole. It's been around about 15 years. I've used it, well, I don't know how many hours I've used it, and it still works as good as the day I bought it. It's an extension pole. It goes from 2 feet to 4 feet. And the beautiful thing about using an extension pole when you're painting walls is that if you don't use one, you gotta stand up and bend down, stand up and bend down every time you want to go up and down the wall. It's very tiresome, and you're just not going to end up doing all that good a job. By extending it out to 4 feet, you move the extension pole up and down, and you don't have to move very much at all. And you can do everything from the top of the wall to the bottom of the wall without having to crouch or stand up. You're standing, and it does the work for you. And I see so many amateurs trying to paint walls without extension poles. It's crazy. If I had to paint walls without extension poles, I would not be a painter. I would be dead by now. Here's a nice little tip. If you have to paint small areas like a backsplash, say the wall where the backsplash would be in a kitchen, or behind a toilet, or bulkheads in a kitchen above the sinks and so on, little areas like that where a big roller may be overkill, you want to use something like this. This is a 4-inch roller, and you see it's kind of like that other roller that I showed you. It's basically like shag carpet, and it goes on a handle like this. Now there's a lot of paint buildup here, but you can see it's got a small hole, and it just rotates on this handle. This really comes in handy when you have to paint doors. Doors is something you don't want to be painting with a brush. You're painting doors with a brush, you're going to leave brush strokes, there's going to be streaks. You want to roll out your doors. And if you're going to be using latex on doors, you want a nice plush roller. We're going to get into that when we look at actual painting. Right now we're just looking at the tools. This is something you're definitely going to need. This is a standard garden water bottle sprayer. You can go from a mist setting to a stream setting. This comes in handy in so many cases. So many, I can't even get into it right now. You're going to need one. You're definitely always going to need to have a water bottle by your side whenever you're working with latex paint. Always. This is another scraper, similar to this one, except as you can see, it's about twice the diameter. You would use this one if you're working with drywall compounds, or if you're making a much wider repair. This one is just for small cracks and little holes. This one is obviously for bigger jobs. But because it's a lot bigger, we would not use it normally, because normally the containers that have the little amounts of spackling would be too small to accommodate this. So normally we would use this one. You keep this in your back pocket all the time. This one you're not going to use all that much. Speaking of spackling, here it is. It's called Drydex. And if we open it up, you'll see it's essentially a pink putty. And it's pink because it's wet. When it dries, it turns white, and that lets you know that your little patch that you've done is dry and ready for sanding. And this stuff here works great, but only in small amounts, like little holes and cracks. If you use a large amount of this stuff, it'll take forever to dry, and it's just not economical. This is for small little divots, holes, cracks, and so on. You don't want to drywall a house with something like this. And you're always going to need a screwdriver. You're going to have to take screws out of walls. You're going to have to take hardware off of doors, and so on. So you're going to need a screwdriver. This is a multi-screwdriver. It's a lot more convenient to have just one screwdriver in your hand for different heads, rather than have different screwdrivers. But always keep a screwdriver handy, because if you're going to be painting, you really should be taking things off. If you're going to paint a door, you should be taking the door handles off. If you're going to be painting the baseboard, you should be taking the door stoppers off. And if you're going to be painting windows, in many cases you take the hardware off. That's important. This is my favorite tool. This is, I call it a razor scraper. It has a razor blade. It just goes in like that. And this stuff is fantastic for removing any paint, for example, that happens to get on glass. Even old paint. This will take off paint that's years old. If you get anything that is on a smooth, hard surface, this will remove it without scratching the surface. You can remove built-up dirt on for example, on a marble countertop or a granite, glass, anything, without scratching. It's fantastic. And because it's a sharp blade, you can use it for scoring, for cutting. It's a $2 tool, and it's indispensable. This you should be able to get at any typical hardware store, like a Home Depot. Now, with these few basic tools, that's all you need to get started painting professionally.